Emma's a mom. She's married. She has a house. She has an amazing family. Nothing's wrong with her. I don't know. I don't really know. Let me rephrase that. I feel like I've been getting in my head a lot about how I want my life to be or to seem in front of not only myself, but other people. And I've been getting really frustrated when, I build things up in my head. On one hand, I've been getting very emotional almost every single day about why certain people in my life haven't checked in on me or followed up on certain things. And it's been affecting me negatively rather than making up excuses. Like, they're busy, they're doing things. It's okay, Emma. I end up just victimizing myself and not only making myself feel bad, but convincing other people around me that it's bad. And with that comes, venting to, certain people in my life about it. And I mean, my family.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for these people either to say, you have it so good. Like, why are you feeling this way? And not only does that hurt me, because it's like, well, I just opened up to you. Like, why do you?
Yeah. Like, why are you? It's almost like everyone uses this word, but it's like the gaslighting.
Yeah.
Of like, you don't really have a problem.
Yeah.
And it's not really a problem.
Yeah. So it's just like, not validating what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, it's like, well, why don't you just reach out?
Yeah. Is it friends that you're referring to? Is it partners? Like, is it
I think it's
business?
a mix of both.
Yeah.
By both, I mean friends and partners. And that, I guess, is like a great segue into the discussion topic of today of expectations. Like where I hold certain expectations on people for how I think they should act to me.
Yeah.
And that's probably not the best. It's not the best thing to do. But then again, like, this is just a constant battle or topic that always runs in my head, which leads me to, have anxiety when things don't really go my way. Mm-hmm. And then I get stressed out even more.
Here's your emotional support.
Yeah.
Lucky. We need you here. Come here.
And then I just get stressed out even more, like, about the grand topic itself, and then I get confused, like, what is an expectation versus what is a belief of mine? Am I expecting certain people to act A, B, and C way, or do I believe that they should act A, B, and C way?
Your value system is basically what you're saying. Like, you have maybe expectations, and then you have like what you would do. Maybe what you're expecting people to do is based on what you do.
Yeah. And that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, the whole system is fucking flawed. It's all flawed.
Because what your system is doing is forgetting that people don't think like you do. People are not going to try like you do. And oftentimes people aren't even don't have the mental capacity you think they have.
Yeah.
And so are you comfortable diving into specifics or?
I mean, yeah, I'll give an example. I'm not going to name any names, and I don't want people assuming, if you're listening to this, I don't want you to assume that your ex person, and I don't want people to feel bad for me. Like that's another thing. It's like I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. Like this is really just like all talked up in my head. But again, to reround the topic, that I just had a kid and this wasn't planned.
Right.
And it is the most beautiful, amazing thing that happened to me. But because it wasn't planned, I am getting a lot of the postpartum depression that just keeps coming back, where because I'm now a mom, like I expect things to go a certain way, and I expect myself to be a certain mom. And I think that's because I've put certain people around me on giant pedestals. My mom, for example, I put her on this giant pedestal. She is everything I want to be and more as a mom, because she wore that super mom cape.
Right.
But I think I'm so impatient, and I want to be that already, and that when I'm not, it beats me down. And then in addition to that, because I'm feeling so negatively, I don't understand why certain people haven't checked in.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of people put this golden ticket or this halo around, oh my God, you're now a mom, you have your shit together. Like, Emma's a mom, she's married, she has a house, she has an amazing family. Nothing's wrong with her.
Yeah.
On the bigger picture, yeah, nothing's wrong with me, but you look through a microscope and I can give you a laundry list of things that I'm feeling. So there's that, and I have certain friends in my life that aren't necessarily on the same timeline as me.
Yeah.
And I make such a conscious effort when I'm talking to them or when I'm hanging out with them. I don't want it to seem or come across that I have it better than them, or because you're not a mom yet, you don't understand. Like, I don't understand, right? Like, yeah. I really don't understand. I'm learning everything as I'm doing, and I don't know what it is that I'm putting out in the world that makes everyone think that Emma Gabay or Emma Leventer has her shit together, and I just don't. So it's really hard for me when I have certain friends in my life whom I love and who I believe I check in on a regular basis, and I don't feel like it's reciprocated.
Yeah. I mean, that is very heavy to feel like, because in some ways you're Emma. You were Emma before Noah, and you're still Emma after Noah. And I feel like the way you're explaining it is as if like people think that once you have a baby, you don't need the support a friend would give because you have everything. Or you have, quote unquote, the family, the house. It's almost like you don't need the check-ins, or you don't need, but I think that's beyond flawed. And so have you felt that that's what you've been getting from like close friends who have checked in the past, and you feel like ever since you've had Noah, it's changed?
Yeah, I do, just because it's something I don't, like, unless you have a kid, I think it's something that's very hard to understand. Right. But then again, it's another battle of understanding who Emma is, right? Like, I'm still trying to grasp who I am, separate from having a kid. And my mom and I just had this long conversation of like, once you become your mom, like, that's your identity. You're a mom. And whether that's mom is your identity or your kids are your identity, you take that cape and you wear it proud. They are you. Now you get to mold and grow and teach these kids every mistake that you've gone through and how, to overcome those or how to do them better. But I'm struggling with understanding or teaching myself at the same time as my kid. And then with that is just like another whole conversation of my whole life. I've always been identified with somebody. I'm a twin. Since the second I've been created with another person. It's Emma and Josh.
Yeah.
You know, now it's Emma and Noah. It's like, so when people check in on me, I feel like they're not checking in on me, they're checking in on Noah. And I love that. Like, I love that you care and you love my child just as much as I do. But like, I also exist.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think it's really hard when like I'm trying to remind myself that I also exist to other people. Where it's like, obviously you exist. Like, but it's this thing that I'm trying to work through. I don't know if any of this is making any sense.
It makes sense. It seems like you are holding extremely high expectations for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, you then hold expectations for other people that might not be high. They're very valid. It's the right thing to do. But I think you're putting too much weight into external rather than laying off the pressure on yourself that one, you have to have it all figured out because you have Noah, or one, that you have to be okay, or like that you have to not feel bad when people are checking in on your kid. Like you shouldn't feel that guilt that's a feeling, you know?
It's just like, why can't I believe that when I know these things? Why do we hold ourselves to such high expectations? Why do we hold our loved ones to such high expectations when all we get in return is disappointment? It's like, I know I'm going to be disappointed, but yet I still hold these expectations, and I hold these expectations mainly on myself.
Right.
Why can't we just be? We're put on earth by whatever you want to believe in, a higher power, like where the people around us only want what's best for us. Mm. And we're put on earth where this higher power is paving this path for us to do good. So why can't we just sit there and be the way the path is created for us? Like, why do we throw in these expectations to reroute us, to lead us to disappointment? Just something that I just keep like banging my head on, where like I read these words, I see them often, I repeat them in my head, but it still just keeps happening. So it's the big question of like, why do I have this expectation in myself that if I don't look a certain way, that my husband is gonna fall out of love for me and leave me? Why, if I'm not a certain mom, my daughter's gonna hate me and she's gonna leave me? Why, if I don't, continue my business and make a certain amount of money, my parents are gonna be disappointed in me? Like, why do I have all these expectations on myself that were never word for word said by any of these people?
Yeah. I think you're creating.
I know, but why do we do that? Like, I want to know where that comes from.
Right. I think everyone has a certain level of expectations for themselves, but it seems like you have a very high level of where you think things need to be. And you, from just like our previous conversations, I've noticed that you think everyone thinks a certain way about you. I just can't imagine I'm someone who puts a lot of pressure on myself too, but as a new mom, like I can't imagine carrying that intense pressure on myself while I'm being a mom and trying to develop as a career woman. Like, how can you give yourself some grace? Because I feel like you have to. You're gonna combust.
No, I know, and I have in many ways.
I want you to know that none of those things are true that you're saying. They're not. And I'm not going to say here that it's abnormal to think those ways. It's definitely normal. I think, it's definitely a topic I want to talk about, like postpartum and mental health as a whole. Like it's shouldn't be something we shy away from. But I want you to know that I think you're a very tough critic of yourself, and it's good to an extent, but when it gets to this level, like, I want to tell you that it's not true, and like I refuse to hear it from you. and you have so many people who think the world of you and do not think the things that you're putting in your head. Maybe, this notion, just going back to friends or people in your life that aren't reaching out and the expectations you hold on them. And you said that you think that they think that your life is perfect and that they don't need to maybe reach out, or they don't feel like it's necessary, or you don't need the support. What makes you think that's what they think?
Because actions speak louder than words.
You think that because they're not reaching out, it's because they think you're okay? Or is it because maybe they're going through some shit that they can't be good friends?
That would be the smart and, most fair response to it all. But I'm so quick to just point the finger at myself and
think it's like it's a you thing.
And think it's a me thing, and it's not me. Like, I don't consider myself a selfish person at all, but it's just,
you just think
victimize myself.
Right. You point the finger on yourself. You're like, it's either something I did or it's how they're perceiving me. But I just wonder, like, you give your heart to everyone and everything you do. And I just maybe don't think that these people do the same.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't. And do you feel like you pulled too much weight onto who these people are? I mean, if they are your family, I understand. Maybe close friends, I get it. I don't know if you're comfortable kind of diving into like what you want to hear from these people, or what you're expecting specifically, or maybe an example of someone who's been there and who now isn't there, or what kind of makes you wonder, like, what went wrong?
I don't know. And it's funny you ask that, because it's like I expect these people to reach out, but I don't know what I expect them to say.
Yeah. Do you just feel that there's a certain part of you that wants people to hear you? Like,
yeah, for sure. I feel like no one, and like, yeah.
Do you feel like no one gets it? Or what do you feel unheard about?
My feelings. I mean, I feel like people put words in my mouth or think that I'm feeling a certain way when I'm just really not. And I think it comes with me putting it out there that like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to ask for help or want the help.
Yeah.
So if people do reach out, it's like, I'm fine. I'm good. I got it.
So when people do reach out, you turn them away.
Yeah, I just really don't know.
So when you bring up this topic of expectations, and yesterday you texted me saying you want to talk about it, it seems like while you were discussing your expectations for other people, it seems like the expectations it's coming back to the expectations you put on yourself.
Yeah. But it just like really had me thinking also, like, we reach a certain age in our life where we expect ourselves and the people around us to be at a certain point in their life, whether it be marriage, kids, job. And I don't believe that there is a time in our life where we ever feel like we have it figured out.
Yeah. No, we don't.
So it just goes back to, why do we put those unrealistic expectations on ourselves, right? Like, when I was a little girl, and I never expected myself by the age of 26 to be married and with a child. I never expected that. I love it. It's the greatest gift in the world.
Right.
But I never expected that. So why now, when I'm 26 with a child, do I put new expectations on myself?
Right. Life is not what you expected it to be, but you continue to put those expectations on yourself, even though you know it's never gonna be the way you think it's gonna be.
I say this to myself all the time. Like, there's no such thing as a yellow brick road, right? There's no right path. By a certain age, you shouldn't have X, Y, and Z. You know, people get things at different times in their lives.
Right.
When I went through college, I was surrounded by so many overachievers that expected to graduate and make a certain amount. And when I was leaving college, I'm like, I don't expect to make a penny right now. Like, I just had such a different mentality than all these people. And now that I'm in it, at least I feel like I'm in it, like living this adult life. Why all of a sudden this shift of adulthood do I feel those expectations? Did I not feel adult when I was in college and I was just, lagging behind all these people who like felt adult all of a sudden?
Yeah.
If there's something that ticks, when you reach a certain age or when you accomplish a certain thing, that all of a sudden this new wave of thoughts rush in your head. Who's to say that like you need to meet someone, move out, get married, have a kid? Is that a belief or is that an expectation?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's up for interpretation for sure. And I think every person's very different. And I don't think we always are going to think the same things. And it really depends on a number of factors. I think, like, who you surround yourself with, what your friends or peers or family expects of you. I think that could have an influence on what you think. Or, I mean, we're in a constant comparison battle in every part of our life where we're looking around and pointing fingers at what people have, whether it's on social media or your friends or your peers or those that you've graduated with. And we're constantly, even subconsciously are comparing ourselves and not even noticing that we are. And I think it's very normal to, in different parts of our life, expect different things, or maybe in another part of your life, you didn't have that much pressure. You didn't feel that crazy pressure, and now you do. And it could be because you're a mom now, or it could be that you are starting a new career or you're pivoting from a new industry, and it's just like the unknown almost. So, I mean, it's an interesting topic because it's like, what primes us to think it's a certain way when you're, in different environments, or when you reach a certain age, or even if I don't know, like, I'm a firm believer that the anxieties and the feelings you feel are also related to your health and your gut. And that's something that I'm not registered to talk about. I'm not by any means like a health provider or professional, but I just have found from my experience that my anxieties and the pressure I put on myself is intensified when I'm just not healthy. And that doesn't mean that you can't have those severe or toxic expectations when you're quote unquote healthy, whatever that means. But I think it's important to look at mind, body, spirit, soul, like everything combined when you're thinking about, why am I thinking the way, what are my thoughts and what does it all mean? And I saw many people talk about this concept of how thoughts are like clouds, and how if you can learn just to kind of, before you internalize them, if you have a thought or an expectation or some sort of bubble that pops into your head, rather than letting it kind of sit into your soul, into your heart, into your being, like,
you have to
watch it pass by like a cloud. And I think just like the imagery of that is like really soothing, because while it's probably a lot easier to say that than to do it, I think if you can just, like, I'm looking at the clouds outside, if you could just like say, that's the expectation of, I need to be XYZ, or I have to be a perfect mom, I have to be a perfect wife, I have to be a perfect friend, I have to do all this shit. For whatever reason, it's not you. It's a thought. You aren't your thoughts. You aren't. And so just let it kind of be like, thank you, I see you, goodbye. And even just like, I don't know, like I feel like even saying it out loud helps. Being like, I see
just
it,
gonna say,
you know?
like it would be, I'm even thinking now with relationships, right? Like, at least for me, when I was younger and I dated certain people, I held certain expectations that they had to be a certain way to me. And in the end, you break up and you're disappointed that that person did not meet those expectations, when in reality, that was a belief that all I had to do was communicate with them that this is how I believe it should be, or this is how I want it to be. And if that person truly loves you, they will practice or work towards, catering to your needs.
Of course.
But I never gave that chance for it to blossom or to actually happen.
Right.
So in essence, I'm just echoing what you're saying. It's just like when these thoughts come up, there's so much value about communicating, so that you don't get disappointed and then you don't in the end regret something, because regret has no place with expectation.
Right. I think you're touching on an interesting point, which is I think many people for some reason hesitate to communicate why they maybe feel or what they expect, maybe about their standards or their values, which by all means we all have our value system and we should honor those value systems. And by no means are we saying degrade those value systems. But I feel like before assuming or expecting that someone should be a certain way or think a certain way, the power in communicating, like it should be taken seriously. Like the idea of communication is so crucial. And I think people miss that part. I feel a certain way. I expect a certain thing. And then like, if you don't do that, then you automatically put that on yourself, or you put it on the situation at hand and you're like, this didn't work out because X, Y, Z, and you didn't even share what you feel. So like going back to what you're saying, like, have you ever reached out to your friends or to whoever you're referring to and say like, it bothers me that you don't reach out?
No. No, I'm not.
Not that you should, and not that they deserve that, right? Because they should, if they're good friends to you, it's your belief system that they should reach out. But I wonder, like, if you care about them as much as you'd hope they care about you, or if you did something to them, wouldn't you want them to come to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The communication part is like a really big element that like I think sometimes we let go of.
I mean, it ultimately comes with the fear of disappointment and the fear of rejection, the fear of
not being understood.
Yeah, and not being
Validated
taken seriously.
right.
Gotta face those fears, I guess.
I think it depends, who deserves that communication, or even the time, or even trying to salvage or rehab a relationship. Some things are just not worth restoring. Like, it's obvious that many people put a serious amount of pressure on themselves and then in turn externally. And that's an interesting lens, to look through once you like realize that you're like, oh, I'm doing this to myself. And I don't know what the solution is.
I don't think anyone knows.
No. But
I don't.
But it's real, it's real talk.
Yeah.
And it's valid. And I think today, in such a busy and chaotic world that we live in, that takes part in so many different mediums, where it's in person or online, there's just so many elements to our life. It feels a lot more complicated than what our parents once described things to be. I keep saying it, but it feels human to like put those unnecessary pressures and expectations, because there's so much stimulus and like we are constantly looking and expecting and comparing, and it's very noisy, and we make
That's
our
what it
brains
feels
noisy.
like.
Yeah. Like it's noisy up in there.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I guess to wrap it up, we just need to learn how to all communicate.
I guess so. But also like don't expect too much.
It's like they say, like we talked about it in another episode, where like assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So
Right.
expectations just to make your brain all
They also make
foggy
an ass
and
out of you
noisy.
and me. Don't expect.
Don't expect.
Don't expect
Easier
and
said
lay
than
off
done.
the pressure. In any instant, something insanely unpredictable can happen. And not that is any, justification for what, or shouldn't take away from what we feel. But I think when you realize like life is so fucking precious and tomorrow's not guaranteed, and why are we putting so much unnecessary pressure on ourselves? Like, it's just not worth it.